Welcome to the CLB Forge podcast. This is the show to help equip you and your church for mission, ministry, and multiplying disciples. Here are your hosts, Pastor Mike Natal and Dr. Ryan Nilsson.
Welcome to episode 36. Our guest today is Reverend Dr. Daniel J. Berge, and we are happy to have him on the podcast today. You may have heard Daniel's lovely voice before on a different podcast, specifically with the seminary, and we're going to talk about that a little bit because that is a tremendous resource to tap into. I had the joy of graduating seminary with Daniel, so I know almost everything about him. I know a lot of deep, dark secrets about him, and I want to just share with you that Daniel has a prehistoric phone, and he can barely text, but he doesn't do anything to do with the internet or any of that. Yep, there it is. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening on the podcast, it kind of looks like a Samsung Razr. It's one of those flip phones that nobody has seen in over 50 years. But he is rocking it and proud of it. And let's see, Daniel has 8 kids. Daniel, can you name your kids in descending order?
Yes. Nailed it.
Good.
Brooklyn,
right.
Preston, Sean, Emerson. I
love how
Emerson, Boston, Trace, Evangeline, Josephine.
Nailed it. Good job. Good job. And Daniel has a wonderful wife who, whether you believe it or not, I get on her nerves fairly often. Her name is Megan. Shout out Megan Berge. She puts up with a lot. She's got 8 kids, and she's got to put up with me sometimes too. And she does a fantastic job, full of grace and love. And I appreciate that about her. Let's see. What else can we tell you about Daniel Berge? He's a professor at the seminary. And we are just so happy to have him here. So let's give a warm welcome to, once again, Reverend Dr. Daniel Berge. Thanks for joining us, Daniel.
Hey, I'm happy to be here, guys. This is a lot of fun.
This is great.
We're already laughing.
I know. Oh, this is so good. So Daniel, why don't you give us a little introduction about the podcast first off? So I'm going to have you do it now in the beginning, but then also again at the end. So just be prepared.
Well, the first thing I want to say is Brad just tells me to do a podcast and I show up and do it.
That's definitely not getting edited. So this is good.
All right.
As I hear you describe that, I feel like I'm in the room with you and Brad. Thank you. That was good.
That's good. Good.
What's the name of your podcast?
What is it? He says it every time. Embracing the world, word, reaching the world.
Got it.
Okay, I'm going to start pretty soon, and then you'll know when to edit. Do I clap first? It doesn't work when you laugh.
This is so good. Oh, this is maybe my favorite podcast, knowing how much editing Ryan's going to have to do. Oh, this is so good.
This is one. Easy.
So like every 10 minutes takes 30 or 40 to edit. Thank you, guys.
So wait, what is it? Much. Embracing the word.
Reaching the world. Is that it?
Okay.
Mike, I thought you froze. That was a good pause.
So our podcast is, I think we call it Embracing the Word, Reaching the World. And, just something that Dr. Brad Pribenow, the Reverend Dr. Brad Pribenow has come up with that I'm happy to participate in. And we try to pull in different speakers when we have a J term or a Peterson lectureship maybe, as well as taking on different topics that we think are relevant to our audience. The donors, people who support the seminary, our pastors, lay leaders, that kind of stuff. Try to put some content out there that's helpful for them.
Cool. Yeah, I've been happy to listen to it. I really like some of the different, you kind of run the gamut. Like it's very eclectic in terms of what you guys talk about. Here on our podcast, we're trying to talk about specifically like mission, ministry, and multiplying disciples. And so we like to ask our guests a question in the beginning, which kind of allows our listeners to get to know you a little bit better. And that is, can you tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey that has brought you, through seminary, through doctoral studies, and now into teaching at the seminary? And like, if you could tell us one or two individuals who have had an impact on your life and have like discipled you, that would be helpful for our people.
Yeah. If I was really honest, the most impactful people in my life wouldn't seem to be dramatically impactful, but I think this is entirely appropriate. It would be my mom and my dad. And I don't think there was ever this intentional spiritual discipleship moment or anything like that. But I think this is the way God has made us. This is the way it's supposed to be. That our parents are supposed to have that role and that calling in life. And if I look at my spiritual faith, my spiritual journey, how I live my life right now before God and man, it's probably as much as anything modeled after patterns that I received from my parents growing up. So that's complete honest, probably the truth there. I don't know if I can do a little tangent here. But it just struck me today in part of what I'm doing here at the seminary. We have a student in Africa, and we were connecting with this African Bible college over there. And I was watching this video from this African Bible college. And this local guy in Malawi, who's a pastor there, I believe, he was speaking about their ministry that he was a part of. And he said, we don't want to just feed people. God has already put people in their lives who are supposed to be feeding them. These people have mothers and fathers, and that's their role to feed them. We're trying to help build the leaders to help make sure that people are doing their proper roles. And I think that's worth reiterating in a lot of different contexts, right? We really need mothers and fathers when they're there to take those roles seriously and hold that impactful.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think that runs too, like within our Lutheran heritage. When I think about Luther, who made the large and the small catechism, the small catechism's whole purpose was that it would be taught regularly in the household by the head of the household would teach that. And so I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. And so, yeah, definitely shout out to Candace and Wally Berge for raising you up well, which is good. And we are encouraged by them as well. I mean, I know them personally. It sounds like, Ryan, you now have a person on this podcast whose house you've slept in.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
So you're in
that's
the club
true.
now. You're in the club. So Daniel, one of the crazy things about our podcast is that some of our guests who we have on, I've like slept in their basement, or I've slept at their house, or even like when we did Andy Larson, right? Andy Larson? Yes. He was recording from a room that I literally slept in. And so it's interesting. So now Ryan joins the group. You will get a high five the next time that I am allowed to do that due to COVID.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
One of the first times I stayed at the Berge house was when I moved to seminary. And that was like in 2001. And Andy Larson and I were renting an apartment together. And so we roomed together our first year of seminary. But we stayed at the Berge house the first night or two before we moved into the apartment. To show you how much stuff we had, I remember, Daniel, your mom, Candace, we were Andy and I were there at the house, and your mom was going out to go shopping. And we said, okay, and we're going to go move into the apartment. So she goes out, she goes shopping, and we go move in, and like had almost no stuff at all. Moved in, came back before your mom was done shopping, she gets back and she goes, "Wait a minute, I thought you guys were going to move in." And we did already.
We had like 2 frozen pizzas and TV.
These are the bachelors. Yeah.
Nice.
So that was pretty funny. Daniel, we'd love for you to tell us a little bit about the course you have. You have a course on the LB Discipleship Institute, which you can find at lbdiscipleshipinstitute.org. This is an online learning system put out by the seminary for people of all walks of life, for lay people in the church. And you have a course that's called New Testament Survey. And we'd love to hear we wonder if you could tell us a little bit about this course. Maybe you just start off, how did you get the idea for putting this course in the LB Discipleship Institute?
I'm wondering if I was asked on a preliminary basis, the LBDI concept, coming up with some lay education, that's been part of the conversation for a while. And now finally, Alan Bjerkes is kind of leading the charge on that. And we're still, trying to figure out what this looks like going forward. People have been talking about this and we're not sure what the needs are. And if what we're doing is meeting the needs, it sounds like we've got some good traction right now. And we've started with some basic core courses. And one of the ones I was asked to start with was this New Testament survey. So that is what it is. We go over the entire New Testament in the course. And it's a balance between some introductory lectures that I have, kind of on the New Testament as it is, but then also on some specific books, probably a little heavier on the lectures with the Gospels on the front end. I don't have a lecture on, every single one of Paul's books, but just an introduction in general. But the whole point of that LBDI course is to have the person who takes it sign up, have a little bit of guidance, and go through the entire New Testament, read through the New Testament. The LBDI courses were originally designed for, like a one-on-one mentor kind of thing. At least that's the vision I received right away, though we've seen, like specifically this course and some others as well, be used by congregations in classes, like a Sunday school class or something like that. So, maybe we need to reshape how we do some things or, stay open-ended enough for that. But the idea with my course is to help people catch the passion I have for reading each individual gospel for the beautiful, unique voice that it is. That's one of the things I try to bring out in that course. And it's something I bring out in my classes here when I teach a New Testament introduction class, like I just had today. What I require my students to here at seminary is to read through the gospel, hopefully in one sitting, if they can find time for it, as big a sittings as possible, at least read through the gospels, each gospel, all the way through. My students here do it twice. I think with the LBDI course, you're just supposed to do it once and then discuss it, something like that. But reading through the gospels in a big chunk. What that allows you to do is it allows you to see, wow, hey, this is a united book. There's almost like a plot, things work together. Each gospel has a unique voice. And when you're really learning to pay attention and read all the way through, you kind of see the united storyline. You see how, this little thing that Jesus said here, he didn't just say it out of the blue. It's written here in Luke to tie into what he said in this chapter. And then later in that chapter, same thing with Mark, John, Matthew. And that's kind of the main thing I try to deliver in that New Testament survey course, is help draw people towards that. So little intro for you there.
So if people were looking to take this LBDI course, they would go to the seminary website, and then I know that there's a link to LBDI. And then what course would they specifically be looking to sign up for?
I think it's specifically under New Testament Survey.
New Testament Survey. And
okay, great.
You can go right to lbdiscipleshipinstitute.org, and we'll put that in the show notes. Daniel, how much time do you anticipate it takes to take this course? If you're to take the course, how much time do the lessons take? How much time do you kind of anticipate people will take to do the reading outside of those courses?
That's a good question. Specifically on the Gospels portion, if you're going to read through Matthew, Luke, or John, that's going to take you about 2 hours just to read straight through it. Mark is going to take you maybe an hour and a half. And then you've got the letters of Paul and all that kind of stuff that will take less time individually, but there's quite a few of those. I have the course broken up right now according to sections, and I was trying to open that on a screen to review the outline here.
So wait a minute, let me guess. Gospels, Acts, Pauline epistles, and general epistles? Is that your outline?
Yeah, generally. And then I have a separate module 6 for Revelation. And I have an introductory one opening up the New Testament. So, they're not really balanced. I have 6 things we call modules, but because of how big the books are, module 2 is probably the biggest one because the Gospels is going to take quite a bit of time. Yep. Where, Revelation is just one book, and I don't have a really extensive lecture on that. I think the lectures that I have are usually around 10 minutes, give or take, something like that.
Okay. All right.
And then the bulk of the course is just working through the biblical books yourself and then discussing them with your mentor or group that you're going through.
So you like to encourage those who are taking the course to read the gospel in its entirety. What are some reasons why you like to encourage people to do that?
Oh man, I wish that I could have entire semester. That's the way I think about it. An entire semester to answer that question, Mike. That's what I do here at seminary with our seminary students when they come here is try to show them. I even get 2 years with them if they take the Greek program. I was just going through the Gospel of Mark in Greek with some second-year students right before this podcast, and just loving where they're able to be at now and how we're able to study and see specifically, what I wrote my dissertation on when I got my PhD was specifically on a certain passage, but the temple theme in Mark's Gospel. I think that in Mark's Gospel, I can demonstrate it. And if you're reading it yourself, I hope you're able to see it, that Mark's got a very big concern, especially at the end of the gospel, to show that Jesus is kind of replacing the old temple. The old temple is done away with, and Jesus is now our new temple. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. He's destroying and saying no to the handmade temple, and he's replacing it in 3 days with one that's not made by hands. There's a few allusions for you if you want to kind of catch what I'm laying down here. In following that and picking up themes like that isn't something that you can do really well by just looking at individual passages. You've kind of got to read not even just, an individual chapter, but the chapters around it as well. And the bigger you go until you're reading the entire book as a whole, the better you're going to be at seeing what the specific concerns and themes are that this unique gospel is trying to say. I love the temple theme, and I think Mark is a great place to go for that. What this looks like, reading the gospel all the way through, Mark, let me give you 2 passages that illustrate this in Mark. At Jesus's baptism, Mark describes his baptism differently than Matthew and Luke and John, for that matter. In the baptism at Mark, the heavens are torn open instead of just opened. It might not seem like much, but the heavens are ripped. They're rent. They're torn. I don't know what your English translation has. Of course, it's the Greek verb schizo. I know, Mike, you were wondering.
Of course. And then the Holy Spirit descends. And at that moment, the voice from heaven says, "This is my son." At the end of the gospel, when Jesus dies, the temple curtain is torn. The same verb is used. The schizo verb is used. It's torn from top to bottom. And at that moment, Jesus dies, and the Roman centurion says, "Truly, this is the Son of God." Right? You see this ripping, and then you see this identification of Jesus as Son of God. And you can see it at the start of the gospel and at the end of the gospel.
and you can see, hey, this works together. This was an intentional thing that this author, Mark, as we like to call him, actually did this to tie things together. And I think that's a first clue to help people see, wow, if I don't read chapter 1 near when I'm reading chapter 15, when that scene happens, I'm not going to ever make that connection. If I'm learning to read all the way straight through, and maybe I have a little bit of help seeing those kind of connections, I'll learn to see more things, because I think that's a really intentional, Spirit-inspired way that Mark has written this gospel.
Oh, that's beautiful. Can you tell, you've kind of gotten, in what you've just said, you've kind of come back to this theme of the unique voices of the gospel and telling us a little bit about this theme in Mark. Can you tell us a little bit more about this passion you have for helping people see the different voices of the different gospel writers?
Yeah. It's fantastic. My favorite thing in my job here when I'm teaching New Testament introduction is I assign these students reflection papers, and I have them read through the gospel straight through in one sitting, and then answer some questions. What do you think of the reading experience? What themes did you see? What stuck out? And then they do it again. I have them do it a second time, and then they answer the same questions. And it is a regular thing every year where I get several students, their first comment after doing it is, "Whoa, I've never done this before. This was awesome." They're just enthusiastic about it. I've never had this kind of an experience before. Like, why haven't I read the Gospels like this? I see so much more. And that's the passion I'm trying to exude. Now, I will also say it's also a regular experience of mine where I'll have a student come in, especially the first time that someone does this. Maybe this will be encouragement to someone who's tried it and struggled with it. The first time someone does this, they say, "I had a hard time paying attention." Like, just sitting there and reading for this long was really hard. I had one student a year or two ago. He said something like, "I've played too many video games." It's hard to pay attention. But even that student, a few weeks later, as we've been talking, what are other people seeing? What am I seeing? What are you seeing? And then, we're a few weeks into it. By the time we're reading Luke's gospel, he's like, "Wow, this is great." And he's giving great insights as well. And he's learned to appreciate this thing. So it's a little bit of a skill. And if you try it the first time, you're like, "It doesn't work for me," let me encourage you to, keep going. Stop playing your video game.
Try again.
Yeah.
There is really something about that. This is a total tangent, but just the attention span of a lot of us has really been impacted by screen time in general. It's interesting to hear about you seeing seminarians coming in and probably picking up some better, healthier reading habits. And do you see some of those life changes happening at seminary?
I regularly,
if you say no, we'll just edit it out.
I regularly see students gaining this appreciation for reading the Gospels as units, hearing that unique voice, seeing thematically, and learning more and more what it means to appreciate the context. Because I think probably most people in all of our churches are going to pay lip service to, of course, the context matters. We have to read contextually. But rarely does that mean like, I'm going to read for a 2-hour block,
Yeah.
But that's what I'm trying to help people think, like, okay, whatever your favorite book is, how long did it take you to read it? Have you ever sat down and watched a movie for 2 hours? What if you did that with the Bible?
Yeah. It's amazing to try to change that perspective, because people, binge watch something on Netflix all day. And then if you ask them, "Hey, but how are you doing reading the Bible?" "Well, it's I get to it." I'm like, it just seems like the priority, not the priority shift, but just like an overall cultural shift has shifted away from reading and gone more into the digital age. And so even I heard one guy who said, the smartest thing that I've done in a long time was I got the Bible on a CD, or I got it on my Apple playlist, and I listened to it. And I think I think he listens to like James Earl Jones or somebody like that, read him the Bible. And he's like, yeah, so like when I'm driving now, instead of turning on and listening to your podcast, I just listen to the Bible. And I'm like, all right, great. That's good. That's
and
good,
he's
dude.
way ahead now. If you're wasting your time right now listening to our voices, just turn it up, find the Bible. No, really, I actually do that. Since Mark is the shorter gospel, I'm talking maybe more about my seminary course than my LBDI course. But in my seminary course, when Mark's the shortest, I have them read it twice, but also listen to it once all the way through, and then comment, how's that the same? How's that different? And I've got quite a few friends that I met in grad school, even my doctoral advisor, who are part of a group of people who actually perform it. At least before
that's
COVID.
cool.
They would travel around. They'd memorized entire big chunks, chapter after chapter after chapter, and then they dramatically recite it from memory.
Wow.
And you go and sit there for 2-3 hours, however long it takes, and listen to the Gospel of Mark orally performed. And what's cool about that is there's most likely that was how it was originally given.
Yeah.
Not everybody had their own manuscript. And most people didn't know how to read at that time, but most people also had access to reading and literacy, as these gospels were probably read publicly out loud, and perhaps even in those long sections. So that was how it was supposed to be heard.
So that's great. It sounds like this course is a great opportunity to kind of kickstart some new spiritual habits, some new spiritual disciplines for people. Like if you're feeling like, man, I'm totally out of a routine or rhythm of reading the Bible, this could be a great way to get started. Yeah.
And what I try to major in is try to get your nose in the pages themselves. I don't want to have you read some other secondary source about the Bible. I'll give you a little bit of information, a little bit of a guide, but then I want you to stick your nose in the pages and read the Bible. Or, if listening fits your fancy a little bit more, go ahead and listen to the Bible. A bit of leading, and then hopefully you've got a discussion partner. That's that mentorship component that we hope happens with our LBDI courses. You'll see more growth, and especially with what I'm kind of saying, it's a lot better if you do it with someone else. Sometimes we become our own echo chamber.
Yeah.
I always find it interesting as I get students to give this feedback to see how different the feedback can be from different students, what they're seeing. Great example of that. We had a student who was a military man most of his life. And he comes and takes the NTI course from me, and I have him do this exercise reading the Gospels all the way through. And it happened not just in Matthew, but then he says it again in Mark. As I was reading through, I was trying to figure out what Jesus's strategy was. Right. And he was analyzing everything through like strategy and tactics.
Yeah.
Like his military mind was shaping the reading experience. So that's a great time to say, read with someone else who doesn't have that background.
Right.
And hear what they're seeing as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I know the course has only been live for a couple months now. The whole website's fairly new, but have you heard any early feedback from people who've taken the course? What are some of the positives, the blessings people are sharing with you as they're going through this?
Yeah, as you said, it hasn't been out there too long, but even before it was fully launched, there was a little trial thing in it. One of the students who I had at seminary was in his congregation, and then he led a Sunday school class based off of my course. So, they'd watch the lectures, but then they did the actual reading continuously all the way through the Gospels. And he gave me that feedback that, hey, your lectures were okay, but the congregation really liked reading the Gospels straight through. And that's the kind of way I'd like to have this received, it's not about what I've really done in this course. I haven't done anything that great. The course is really an opportunity for you to read through the Gospels really well. Sometimes the course will just help give you a little bit of guidance on what that looks like, how to do that. But that's where the gold is just reading the Bible.
That's awesome.
That's
great.
where that should be the tagline right there, Ryan, that you put towards the front of it. That's where the gold is in reading the Bible. And then you start the podcast.
All right. Yeah. All right.
That's
Can I
cool.
drop this microphone now? It looks kind
Sure. Yeah. Mic drop. Is that the one that Troy gave you, or is that
yeah? You
is
can
that
drop
a different
Troy's
microphone?
microphone.
Oh yeah, drop
the one
Troy's.
Troy gave me.
Oh yeah, totally. You could throw it across the room. That's fine. He'll be fine with that.
Oh, we better, Mike. That's like our Fergus microphone. We're gonna have lots of people
definitely
using that.
Don't do that. Yeah, definitely don't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap us up. People got a lot of information, and so here's how I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna beatbox, and Daniel is gonna freestyle rap how people can get more information about LBDIM, LBDI. There we go. LVDI. And listening to him and Dr. Pribbenau's podcast, which is not going to happen at all because I'm not going to beatbox. But if people wanted more information, they can go to the seminary website, which we'll leave a link. And if you want to listen to Daniel and Brad's podcast, which is called, anybody want to tell me?
Embracing the
I have
word,
it written down.
Reaching the world.
There it is. Embracing the word, reaching the world. And then if you need more information about LBDI as well, that will be linked down below. So Daniel, thanks for being an awesome guest. We could talk to you for ages. The one thing that I do want to leave our people with is the last time you played HITs was how long ago?
according to the plaque on my wall here, it's 2019.
2019.
I wonder, that doesn't make, yeah, 2019. Yeah, 2020 was COVID.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, HITs is a gigantic bragging rights for anyone within the Lutheran Brethren where they get together and they play basketball. And Daniel, when you play, how does your team do?
Well, we go two different directions typically. And it's been quite a few years because, I moved to St. Louis and did school, moved to Oregon. I missed it all those years, came back to Fergus. I spoke at the the Canadian National Convention my first year, missed HITs. I've only made it 1 year in like the last 10 years. But we got first,
You got humble bragging rights. They got first. So for all those other teams out there, you're welcome that he's been on hiatus for 10 years. And then you're welcome that COVID happened because then he wasn't able to play and kick your butts. But it looks like 2021 might open things up a little bit further. And do you plan on coming back full force to get another number one?
I got to be honest with you, Mike. Not only did we get one, I just did say it goes two different directions. The other place it goes is we either get like cookies for last place or third or something like that. But one of our team members, his mom, who actually passed away tragically this summer, unfortunately, he used to always give us third place cookies when we'd get third place. So that's something as well.
That's
And I got to be honest, this last championship, we moved into the old man division. We stepped down from the top tier stuff because these kids, they just still jump really high and move too fast. So we went to classic. And now if I ever get to play again, I turned the big 4-0 this year. My son is pushing 6 foot. I'm wondering if maybe I just, do the old Tree Rollins player coach technique and join onto one of his teams pretty soon. I don't know. We'll see.
Got it. I was thinking maybe you'd go up against him and he'd just posterize you and just slam dunk right in your face.
See, this is why we need the CLB Sports Show, Mike.
There you go. CLB Sports Show. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Daniel, thanks for being an awesome guest. Reverend Dr. Berge, we are happy to have you on here, and we thank you for dropping some knowledge bombs on us. If you want to find out more information about him, you can go to the seminary website. You can go to LBDI, and you can listen to he and Brad's podcast as well. To our listeners, thank you for listening. We're happy that you could join us, and we would really appreciate it if you could share the podcast with a friend or a colleague. And that's all that we have for you this week. So we hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you later. See.
Forge out.
Yeah.
Ooh, forge out.
I like that.
I feel like I've been forged.
This has been an episode of the CLB Forge podcast with Pastor Mike Natal and Dr. Ryan Nilsson. Thanks for listening. We welcome your questions and comments. Email us at podcast@clbforge.org.